That's a pyramid scheme.
Hello and welcome to you wherever and whenever you are. My name is Jasiek Luszczki and I will be the host for this episode of the TZM Global podcast. I wanted to bring you this podcast as soon as possible because I'm aware that not everybody could be in Athens for the main Z-Day event, but also not everybody could watch it while it was streaming live. So while the videos are being prepared for online publication on our YouTube channel and other official Zeitgeist channels, I wanted to provide you with this teaser of sorts comprised of several short interviews with the presenters from the Athens 2016 Z-Day main event, including Peter Joseph, Abby Martin, of course, but also Stamos, who is a Greek Zeitgeister, as well as a couple of others, but I don't want to spoil too much for you. And by the way, you can check it on the official plan for the event. So, without further ado, these are these interviews where you will hear about the presenters' opinion about the event, and also a little bit about themselves and their work, as well as, of course, their presentations. I hope you will enjoy these interviews, and I hope that they will make you even more eager to watch them in the full version once they hit YouTube channels in their video format. But now, enjoy the short interviews. I'm here with Stefan Kengen from the Danish TZM chapter, who was one of the presenters during the main event in Athens. And first of all, what are your impressions of the whole event so far?
Oh my god, it was probably the worst day ever. I mean, everybody were just total dicks, and no, I'm kidding, of course. As usual, you know, when you get together with these people from all around the world, it's a feeling of coming home. To me, it always is. So, I mean, the event was beautiful. We could have had more people, of course, but it was nice, and the venue was amazing. And I think that the Greek chapter did an amazing job getting it to work. Yeah.
And you did a follow-up on your last presentation from Berlin. Can you shed some light on that?
Sure. I mean, last year I did the Deception of Perception, as it was entitled, and you can still find it on the YouTube channel, which deals a lot with the shortcomings of the brain and how the brain kind of builds a reality to us that's very far from what's actually going on. And this year I wanted to do it a little bit differently and elaborate on some other aspects of it, and involve the audience a little more and have a little bit more fun with the whole thing. And I think it went quite well, actually.
And on the scale from 1 to 5, how much do you think we are in charge of our own decisions, to get a little spoiler from the presentation?
Right. Well, I would have to say actually probably below 1 if we are looking at the science of the matter. Neuroscience is an amazing development the past 15 years, and there's a lot of information out there, which is pretty much my agenda, is to get some of this really accessible information out to a broader audience. People have this tendency to equate science with something cold and difficult, and I'm not a scientist or a scholar myself. I'm just really interested in these topics and how we can improve our communication skills and understandings of our own reaction patterns and stuff. So I try to present that to people and give them sort of a carrot to investigate for themselves and go out and have the resources that are really readily available out there to get better at understanding, you know, what's going on.
And what was some of the biggest surprises for you about the delusions that we actually let lead our lives that as we go along?
Well, I think one of the biggest things for me was the realization that the decision-making process is not something that we really can term as being conscious. You know, there's a lot of debate about the whole idea of consciousness, and science is really struggling with defining what that means. And it's probably because it's not even really a thing. It's not something that you can locate any particular place in the brain. It's not something that you can measure as such. You can only sort of measure the effects of it. It's a bit like quantum theory, really, in that sense, not to by any means equate those two things to each other, because they're pretty far apart, even though some people would talk about quantum, you know, consciousness and stuff like that, which is absolute nonsense. There, I said it. But what you can do is you can understand that the decision-making process is actually as causal as everything else in the universe, and that we are very little in charge of what's going on. And this is becoming more and more apparent in all the fields, different fields of neuropsychology and biology as such. So I think that's probably the biggest thing for me, the realization that this idea that I'm making a decision is just that, an idea. It's not real.
And that's only one of the things that you talk about in your presentations, and you will be able to learn more about in the first one and the second one that will hopefully come out soon online. And have you thought about where you want to take it from now? You did this 2-part series. I think it's wrapped up pretty neatly. Is there any other topic that you would like to take on?
Well, I haven't really thought about that. I think I'm going to take a little break right now because I spend a lot of time on this stuff, and even though it seems kind of superficial in many ways, there's a lot to take on, especially when you want to convey it to other people. What do you include? What do you don't include? Stuff like that. And so I spend a lot of time with it. I think I need a little break, actually.
All right, so enjoy your break, and for all of you, enjoy the distilled version of all the whole huge body of knowledge that Stefan has dug through, actually picking out the most interesting pieces for us. And I hope to see more of your activity in the upcoming events. If not the earliest, then maybe sometime later along the line. Thank you very much, Stefan.
Thank you.
So I'm speaking with Stamos Arhontis, the Greek presenter from the Z-Day main event in Athens. First of all, again, the same question. What was your impression of the whole event?
It was actually a first for me. It's the first time that I get the opportunity to socialize with people from so many different countries, educational and backgrounds and different experiences, and it's actually really interesting. It was a great event, and I enjoyed it very much.
Very good. And you did a presentation. Can you tell us what was it about?
It was about certain misconceptions that people have inside and outside of the movement regarding how the scientific method works, how easy it is for people to get misled when they don't have the sufficient evidence in order to evaluate certain realities regarding our physical world, and how we can work through that within the movement and help the movement evolve through that process and through collaboration with credible institutions such as universities, etc.
And if you wanted to give us some advice on how to incorporate the scientific method in our everyday life as just individuals, what could we do?
We actually live in a fantastic era. We live in the era of the internet. There are massive open and online courses, which are essentially universities on the cloud. People can get there and they can learn about any topic they want. The material is really abundant, and the only thing you need is curiosity and the will to learn. So educate yourselves. The information is out there. You just need to have the will to learn.
An example of those massive online courses?
There is edX, Coursera, Open Yale courses, and all of those are actually free. The only thing you need to do is sign in one of them and just pick a lesson and start learning.
All right, thank you very much for that. I would also like to ask you about your experiences with the Zeitgeist movement and the Zeitgeist movement achievements and activities here in Greece. Can you tell a little bit about that?
As a Greek chapter, we are working really hard. We are actually a few people active right now, and we are doing our best since, as you understand, we are volunteers. We have work staff, school staff, etc., and we're trying to work through that and help as much as we can with our passion, which is helping the world improve as much as we can.
Mm-hmm. And were there any other similar events that you organized before that you plan to organize in the future?
Last year we organized Z-Day 2015 in Thessaloniki. We plan to start a series of lectures in Thessaloniki again the next year in collaboration with the Aristotle University, hopefully. And we are continuing with our local project, the TZM magazine, and we hope there will be developments there too.
All right, I wish you all the best with that. I hope that the courses and the magazine will gain in popularity with each month. And thank you very much for the presentation. I can't wait to see it online, as I think other listeners are too. And see you with the next occasion. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm here with Perry Gruber from Copiosis, and I would like to ask you about your general impression about the Z-Day event in Greece first, and then I'll ask you some more questions.
Okay, the event itself was fantastic. I really enjoyed the enthusiasm and the energy there. I personally thought it was well organized. I know the organizers are kind of not so happy about that, but I thought it was perfect. There was no glitches at all. The content, the speeches were really, really good. I was inspired by what people shared. There was obviously a lot of preparation that people put into the presentations, and they also covered a wide range of topics that are applicable to the future that we're all working together to create.
Thank you for that. And tell us a little bit about your presentation. What was it about, and the main ideas behind that?
Okay, I was invited by Peter to come and give a presentation about the resource-based economy transition plan that we call Copiosis, and I presented in an outline form why we have the transition plan we have, the importance of providing an environment for the ordinary human being on planet Earth to be able to interact with the transition model that we're trying to create in the world so that they can believe it. A lot of people on the planet are the type of person who they believe things only that they can touch, smell, taste, or feel. They're not like the Zeitgeist membership, which I think is a wonderful quality, to be able to see something in their mind, like a vision, and then believe it's possible. Most people aren't trained to think that way, and so you have to provide them something that they can see, taste, touch, or feel, or see, taste, touch, or smell in order to believe it. And so that's what our transition plan is about.
And if somebody wanted to get involved with the Copiosis, what can they do? How can they reach you, and how can they get involved?
Okay, they can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/groups/Copiosis. That's COPIOSIS. Or they can go to our website at COPIOSIS.com.
And can you tell us a little bit more about the ongoing project with Copiosis? You told during your presentation that there are several projects active right now. Could you elaborate on that?
Yes, we have 8 demonstration projects currently in production in some form or another around the world in various locations. Most of them are about 2/3 of them are in the United States. The rest of them are in other countries. And the projects are essentially, they're demonstrations. So we have participants who are behaving as if they would behave in a Copiosis economic system, but it's in the context of capitalism, so that the participants can compare what their life might be in a resource-based economy versus what it is today in capitalism. And the results that we're producing are consistent growth of the number of participants in the project, consistent growth in the number of projects that are launching, of a wide variety of diversity of type of projects, the way they are designed, that's very diverse, and then a lot of shifts in people's hearts and minds with regard to how they feel and think with regard to the conditioning that they have received in capitalism. So the demonstration projects reveal from these participants the conditioning that they receive in capitalism, which makes it overt to them, which allows this shift to occur, which makes them a believer in the resource-based economy.
And what you would say is the biggest result so far, the biggest achievement at Copiosis projects that you've seen so far, that you're most satisfied with?
The three most prominent results are the organic emergence of new demonstration projects. So we're no longer having to start them ourselves. People are being inspired and they want to start them for us. That's really cool. The diversity of the projects, like I said, there's projects starting in Israel, there's projects starting in Switzerland, there's projects starting in Texas, and each of those are totally different types of projects. And then the most important thing is, like I said before, the psycho and emotional shifts that's taking place among the participants, where we're actually causing people's heart, we're not causing people, but we're inspiring people's hearts and minds to change so that they're more favorable to their natural resource-based economy. I think that's really the best.
Great, thank you. That was Perry Gruber from Copiosis, and await his presentation to get online. I'm sure you'll be excited to watch it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And now I'm with Rich Penny. I would like to just ask you about your general impressions of the event so far.
I think it's been an amazing event. I think that we've gotten a lot of really talented, really intelligent people who've come together to offer a lot of diverse perspectives, something that we're really needing. I think between Perry and Stefan and Abby and Stamos, we've got a lot to go forward with what we could do to really bring a resource-based economy into fruition.
All right, you were talking about some things about the change and where we can go and what should we pay attention to. Could you elaborate on what was the main idea behind your presentation?
Well, basically there are two main points, I guess you could say, is that the first and foremost that I tend to look at resource-based economies from the perspective of environmentalism. So really, if climate change and loss of biodiversity is allowed to continue as it's going, if we continue on a business as usual track, the result will be a horrible, miserly existence for all of us, followed very likely by social collapse or even possibly human extinction. And that's not an exaggeration. If climate change is left unchecked, what will happen is that the warming temperatures will cause a condition where bacteria fill the ocean, and the bacteria will produce toxic chemicals that will make the atmosphere unbreathable. So we are not just, that's not just exaggeration, that's not hyperbole, that is scientific fact. So on the one hand, we have the opportunity to stop climate change now. We could do this primarily by making renewables the thrust of our energy policy. So there's an enormous energy potential in geothermal energy, in wind power, in solar power, in osmotic pressure, in tidal power, and obviously the best solution would be a system that uses all of these technologies in concert and tailor manages each in energy policy to the local environment. And so I'm a big believer in that. That's what we should be doing. The second thing is that is poverty. Poverty is a solvable problem. We have the ability to produce enough food for everybody. We have the ability to create clean water almost anywhere we go. So that being the case, there is absolutely no justification for why 800 million people have to starve every year. That is simply morally unconscionable given the current state of technology.
Thank you. And I watched your presentation with a lot of excitement because there was just so many ideas and data packed in one presentation. I just can't wait to see it online. What can an individual do about these issues?
Okay, well, the thing about it is that one of the best and most important things that you can do as an individual is to simply educate yourself. So one of the ways in which the system will change is when enough people simply gather together in what Peter Joseph calls critical mass. And what he means by that is that when enough people start advocating for change becomes somewhat inevitable because the legislative process has to accommodate these people. So now here's a perfect example of what we're talking about. Grassroots movements like the Zeitgeist movement, like Occupy Wall Street, like the Venus Project, are primarily responsible for the fact that Bernie Sanders, an open socialist, is currently on the presidential ticket in the United States. Just 5 years ago, that would have been impossible. Now, he's not going to win. But as Abby Martin said this afternoon, the very fact that he is on the ticket means that now people are open to the idea of criticizing capitalism. And so that is a sign that there's a real step forward. And in time, so one of the best things that you can do is learn. Learn as much as you can. Share the knowledge that you learn. You can contact me, richpenny@gmail.com. I will help you with... I will give you access to resources if you need them. I will give you research, anything like that. And just share that knowledge with people. So that's the first thing. The second thing is I would strongly recommend looking into Perry's talk about copiosis, creating a tangible method to transition towards a resource-based economy. And I think that that's one of the most important things that you can do. So check that out. And yeah, that's it. Like, it's a small process. You don't have to turn your whole life upside down. You just have to be willing to work with the people who are working towards this goal.
And one more question, not connected with your presentation. You said that you are also an author of some books that talk about the reality inside something like a resource-based economy. I find it really interesting. Can you shed some light on that as well?
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so the Justice Keepers Saga is a series of science fiction novels, and the basic premise is, so imagine a somewhat utopic future, but they had to interact with present-day Earth. So the way that works in the story is that 10,000 years ago, aliens took some of our ancestors and they scattered them on a bunch of Earth-like planets. And some of those people have developed space flight, and some of them have come back to Earth. So it's kind of a measurement or an exploration, if you will, of how different cultures affect things. Because you have a young woman who grew up in a resource-based economy who looks at all the things that we do, all the needless waste, all the inefficiency, all of that, and basically says, what the hell is all this? And on top of that, like, I try to, so yes, there's the make you think part of it, but I also try to write a good story that is fun and entertaining and keeps you, and makes you want to read more. So if you want to check that out, it's called Symbiosis, a Justice Keepers novel. You can check it out on Amazon.com.
Thank you. I will definitely get that and read that. Thank you for your participation here, especially that you came all the way from Canada, as I understand. And let's keep up the good work.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Cheers. Bye. And now I'm with Abby Martin, also one of the presenters during the Z-Day event in Athens. You fired up many people with your talk. I've seen some comments online and also saw the reaction of the people in the crowd. Tell us, what was your reaction to the whole event here?
Oh, it was fantastic. I mean, last year in Berlin was super inspiring, and I met so many amazing people that I just had to come this year and do the same thing. It's one of those rare opportunities that you just meet like minds who are so much more advanced than I think a lot of Americans are in terms of the technological opportunities that we have for this movement and for what we're doing. So hugely inspiring, great event, awesome venue, and just kudos to all the organizers in the movement for making it happen.
Great, thank you for that. And tell us a little bit about your presentation. What were you concerned about in your speech?
Well, looking back on it, I wish I brought up more about the refugee crisis and likened it to the internationalism about it. But I mean, my presentation was mostly coming from U.S. empire's perspective, because I'm an American citizen and I feel like living in the most dangerous empire in human history that actually has the ability to squash any alternative systems, that I feel like as Americans we really need to take action in our country, because our government has shown time and again that it will crush any alternatives to global capitalism and corporate hegemony. And so if we don't change our system in our country, then I fear that our government and our empire will not let this happen anywhere else in the world. So I tried to focus on all the contradictions of capitalism and, you know, the most capitalist country that declared the end to alternatives long ago after the Cold War. So I wanted to focus on just complete contradictions of that enterprise and talk about how we don't really live in a real democracy and just explore why.
Thank you. And this is also what you do in your everyday work, I would say, right? Right now, after you left from the RT, you've went to the Empire Files. Can you tell us a little bit about that and any future project that you have in mind?
Sure. So I left RT because I was kind of sick of reacting to the mainstream media incessant fear-mongering, and you know, you're never going to change that system. You're never going to change that apparatus. So I wanted to explore more kind of in Peter's line of documentary work and explore more about the root causes and the context of all the issues that we're facing today, instead of just these superficialities and reacting to those. And so the Empire Files is just a weekly documentary series that I'm really taking the issues that we're all facing and giving so much historical context to that I feel like people just have amnesia about, even from generations ago. I mean, people growing up in America now that are getting the brunt of the oppression they weren't even alive during 9/11 and stuff. So it's really important to talk about how history repeats itself and how this is going to keep repeating unless we change the course of history from this point forward and really take a grasp on what the root cause is, which of course is the economic system, as Peter outlined in his talk so brilliantly, is that is really the fundamental aspect that breeds the government repression and of course everything else that comes with it.
All right, thank you very much. And if you want to check out the Empire Files, search for Abby Martins and the Empire Files. And if you want to get the equivalent of drinking an energy drink, watch out for the presentation by Abby Martin during the Z-Day Athens, and you will get the same effect for sure.
Uppercut in the gut.
Thank you very much, Abby, and see you probably next year or even earlier.
Absolutely, I'll be every year at Zeitgeist until I die. So I'll be fighting.
Or the system dies.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Right, talking to Peter Joseph now. First, I would like to ask you about your impressions of the Z-Day main event in Greece.
My impressions of the event was that it was a phenomenal success with wonderful people that came from afar across 30 countries, from what I came to understand. And it's a great milestone for the 8th annual event. And the Greek culture and the Greek environment is very productive. You have a unique example made of Greece and this global hegemony of the lower classes that do not get bailed out, have no support, while the upper classes continue to do so. We have this socialism for the rich and free markets and capitalism for the poor, and that applies to countries just as much as people. And I hope that the Greek people begin to realize these patterns, and some type of activism can be cultivated more so than simply, lobbying their politicians for hope, because more radical change is definitely required.
And this is a little bit connected with what you were talking about in your presentation. Could you shed some light on what was there?
The presentation discussed the public health ramifications of poverty and social inequality. So ultimately my thing now is the biggest argument against the system we have isn't an ideological one, isn't about fairness, it isn't about all the traditional things that people talk about when they speak in opposition to capitalism or markets. It's the fact that if you look at the numbers and you look at the public health research, what defines us, our happiness, our feeling, our lifespan, our sense of connectivity, our trust, it is a great drain. It is a public health threat to live in the environment that we do with the social inequality and poverty, and that unfortunately is structurally manifest from this social order. And it's not just a capitalism in the sense of the abstraction, it's the whole entity and the whole cultural environment that it's cultivated from a structuralist perspective, and that's my view. I'm a self-proclaimed structuralist, whatever that means, but if I have to label myself for convenience, I will. And to be a structuralist means you're always respecting larger order environments, and you're always more susceptible. The larger the environment is, the more susceptible you are, and that removes our abstractions of self, it removes our sense of free will, it removes a whole lot of things that I won't go into too much detail. But from the standpoint of public health, unless we have a structuralist perspective and see things from a connected world, in a connected world, a lot of these resolutions that we hope for peace and health will not happen.
Once the presentation hits the online, this will be a great resource for arguments in our discussions. But before this happens, where would you point people to if they want to learn more about that kind of topics?
Structuralism, if you're referring to that was first proposed by Johan Galtung of the Gandhi Institute, because he referred to Gandhi as a structuralist. Gandhi always said, don't blame the person for their crimes, look at the motivating structure. It's not an absolutist distinction. It's not to say there's no human volition in the sense of cultivating no character and the like, but it goes to show the power of the environment. And when you take that view, the discussion should always evolve to what is the largest order, most powerful influence, and make people address the social system. So that should be the argument. That should be the debate. Is the social system producing healthy outcomes? Is it the most optimized form? And as you know, the Zeitgeist movement sees a much grander environment that we could create, a better precondition, to use medical terms, that could produce much healthier outcomes than what we're seeing right now.
And where would you like to see the Zeitgeist movement go from now, from the Z-Day in Athens?
That's a very good question. I don't look at the Zeitgeist movement as an institution that is self-contained. I see it as a seed planting institution, where I don't say people should say join the Zeitgeist movement. I believe in the ethic of that, but it should be embrace the values and the train of thought. And if you want to establish a variation of it, or if you, I should say, if you don't, how do I put this? The seed planting that the Zeitgeist movement puts forward will take root in many different ways. And a lot of people will judge and they'll say, well, wait, no, what are the numbers here? Why don't you have a group here? Or why is there a chapter here? Well, it's not about that. It's about how can we influence people on many different levels so they start to adjust their values and their view of the world. And that will take root in many different ways. So it's very difficult for me to answer that question. But I will say over the course of the past 8 years, since the movement's been around, I've seen a tremendous change in the dialogue that has happened. And I don't say the movement is a root of that. I say the movement is a part of that. The movement, as it is with many other pro-human environments, pro-sustainability movements, we've seen political reform approaches in the United States that were completely unheard of a decade ago. We've seen conversations about sustainability come into the public consensus that really, again, were not around a decade ago as well. And the idea of criticizing the social order has become not as much taboo as it used to be, even though it's still frowned upon in the main circles. So measuring the effects of this and what the movement actually does, it doesn't really matter how our metrics work out. It matters the dedication to move forward with it, because at the end of the day, it's the moral implication that this is the right thing to do, and it doesn't matter it doesn't matter if it happens in this lifetime. As far as the larger order extremes that we propose, there's simply no way to live in a sense of dignity without advocating this type of value system to the world. And if people don't see it that way, then I would have to condemn them as being distorted, and they're not actually in line with anything. How they can consider themselves a family person or empathic, I begin to question. When you put that imposition into play, you begin to conform. You begin to see people conform, because that's what it means to be basically human, is to be empathic. And from that point, you realize you have to be concerned about the rest of the world. You can't just be concerned about yourself. So with that tangent, let me summarize by saying that the pursuit of this is not a pursuit of self-interest. It's a pursuit of an extensionality, and it's a pursuit of your own sense of integrity, because if you don't think about the world this way, it just creates social distortion. It creates psychological distortion, and ultimately will create very detrimental things over the course of the next 30 to 40 years, as I talked about in the lecture.
Thank you very much. Be on the lookout for the lecture from Peter Joseph, one of the presenters during the main event, Z-Day event in Athens. Thank you very much, Peter.
You're very welcome. Thank you very much.
And there you have it. Stefan Kengen, Stamos Arhontis, Perry Gruber, Rich Penny, Abby Martin, and Peter Joseph. Almost all of the people that had their presentations during the main event in Athens during the Z-Day celebrations. As you can hear in the background, we were recording those during the after party, right after the main event, hence the sounds of the street and the people in the background. These are genuine Greek customers of a very nice restaurant that was nearby the place where we were having our after party, the owner of which agreed to host us so we could record this without too much of the noise. So thank you very much to this gentleman who hosted us. And this is pretty much it for this episode of TZM Global Radio podcast. I wanted to say goodbye to you again with the same music that we could hear at the very beginning. And this is a teaser for an upcoming music video that a couple of Danes are actually working on right now, and they're putting some finishing touches to it. It is a rap song about how the RBE functions. If you enjoyed, stay tuned, as this should be available soon, within a couple of weeks, on our official YouTube channels with an accompanying music video. I'm Jasiek Luszczki, and I was your host today. Till next time, cheers.